Welcome to the lesson EGPWS. The Enhanced Ground Proximity System, EGPWS, is designed to give both visual and oral warnings when the safety of the aircraft is considered to be at risk due to possible conflict with terrain.
Terrain. Pull up.
During the approach phase, EGPWS also gives radio altitude and decision height callouts.
200 minimums.
EGPWS incorporates the functions of the basic GPWS as well as intelligent, enhanced alerts comprised through comparison of position and flight path data with an internal terrain and obstacle database. The heart of the EGPWS is the Enhanced Ground Proximity Computer, located in the electronics bay under the flight deck. It receives input data from several aircraft systems and releases both basic and enhanced warnings. Visual commands are given via annunciators on the glare shield and dedicated displays. During this module, we refer to the navigation display as EGPWS Terrain Display. Switches are available to modify the EGPWS for steep approaches, different landing flap settings, and to inhibit the enhanced functions. There are cockpit indications to notify pilots in the event of failure of certain functions of the EGPWS. A subsystem of the EGPWS is the Runway Awareness and Advisory System, RAAS. RAAS provides timely oral advisory messages to the flight crew in a significant number of scenarios that have led to runway incursion incidents and accidents. The EGPWS uses input signals from various onboard systems. The full complement of these other systems depends on the EGPWS configuration and options selected. See the main in and outputs of both basic and enhanced warnings on the next pages. EGPWS needs radio and barometric altitude, vertical rates, glide slope deviations, and flap and gear position for the provision of basic warnings. Enhanced warnings additionally need accurate aircraft position and flight path data, preferably GPS position with a backup from other FMS sensors. The EGPWC processes all these data together with internal stored data, such as the internal terrain and obstacle database and warning envelopes. Pilots are provided with output data by audio and visual advisories, cautions, and warnings. This includes terrain display data on a dedicated display. 6 basic modes are provided to protect the aircraft throughout all phases of flight. Modes 1 to 5 are caution or warning modes, and Mode 6 consists of advisory callouts. Each basic and also each enhanced mode is accompanied by its respective oral advisory. Caution or warning transmitted over both cockpit loudspeakers on the overhead panel and the flight crew's headsets. Additionally, the basic modes 1 to 5 are accompanied visually by illumination of either an amber ground prox caution or a red pull-up warning annunciator, located both on the left and right side of the glare shield. Note that the dedicated terrain display is not involved during basic mode warnings. Each mode is defined by an envelope which is stored within the EGPWC. The envelope can be regarded as a graph of minimum terrain clearance against other aircraft parameters. Different levels of alerts are provided by dividing the envelope in more than one area. Specific cautions and warnings are issued when the aircraft enters the respective envelope area and ceases when the envelope is left.
Sink rate, sink rate. Pull up.
Basic mode envelope modulation is made by use of airspeed, gear, and flap position. Mode 1 provides alerts for excessive descent rates with respect to altimeter AGL and is active for all phases of flight. Radio altitude from radio altimeter 1 or 2 is compared to descent rate derived from IRS 1 or 2. When IRS data is not available, vertical rates from ADC 1 or 2 are used. This mode has inner and outer alert boundaries as illustrated in the diagram and graph. Penetration of the outer boundary activates the EGPWS caution lights and the sync rate oral alert until the outer boundary is exited.
Sink rate, sink rate.
Penetration of the inner boundary activates the EGPWS warning lights and changes the audio message to
Pull up.
which repeats continuously until the inner warning boundary is exited. Many aircraft have the steep approach option fitted. It prevents nuisance warnings by allowing higher descent rates associated with approach angles from 4.5 up to 6 degrees by modulating the Mode 1 warning envelope. Pressing the steep approach button on the right flight instrument panel arms the system and SAP is enunciated white. Mode 1 envelope modification is active when SAP turns green. For this, the aircraft must be in flight, flaps set to 33, and gear lowered. Mode 2 provides alerts to help protect the aircraft from impacting the ground when rapidly rising terrain with respect to the aircraft is detected. Mode 2 is based on radio altitude and on how rapidly radio altitude is decreasing, closure rate. Mode 2 exists in two forms, 2A and 2B. Mode 2A is active when flaps are up and the aircraft is not on glide slope. If the aircraft penetrates the outer envelope, the oral message
Terrain, terrain.
is generated and the EGPWS caution lights will illuminate. If the aircraft continues to penetrate the inner envelope, the EGPWS warning lights will illuminate and the oral warning message
Pull up.
is repeated continuously until the warning envelope is exited. The graph shows how the upper boundary of the Mode 2A outer envelope varies as a function of the aircraft speed. As airspeed increases from 220 knots to 310 knots, the boundary expands to provide increased alert times at higher airspeeds. Mode 2B provides a desensitized alerting envelope to permit normal landing approach maneuvers close to terrain without unwanted alerts. Mode 2B is automatically selected with flaps in the landing configuration or when making an ILS approach, with glide slope deviation less than 2 dots or when the aircraft is near an airport contained in the database. The Mode 2B cautions and warnings are the same as for Mode 2A, with one exception. If the aircraft penetrates the Mode 2B envelope with both gear and flaps in the landing configuration, the oral
Pull up.
messages are suppressed and the oral message
Terrain.
is repeated until the envelope is exited. Mode 3 provides alerts for significant altitude loss after takeoff or low altitude go-around with gear or flaps not in the landing configuration. The amount of altitude loss is calculated from IRS 1 or 2 inertial altitude and is compared to radio altitude from radio altimeter 1 or 2. The amount of altitude loss that is permitted before an alert is given is a function of the height of the aircraft above the terrain and is about 10% of the gained radio altitude. Significant altitude loss after takeoff or during a low-altitude go-around activates the EGPWS caution lights and the oral message,
Don't sink. Don't sink.
Upon establishing a positive rate of climb, the EGPWS caution lights extinguish and the oral alert will cease. Mode 4 provides alerts for insufficient terrain clearance with respect to phase of flight, configuration, and speed by aid of envelope based on radio altitude against airspeed. Mode 4 alerts are triggered when vertical speed or terrain closure rate are too weak for a Mode 1 or 2 alert and exists in the three forms 4A, 4B, and 4C. Mode 4A is active during cruise and approach with the gear and flaps up, below 1,000 feet AGL and above 190 knots airspeed. The Mode 4A oral alert is
Too low terrain.
below 500 feet AGL and less than 190 knots airspeed. The oral alert is
Too low gear.
Both alerts are accompanied by the EGPWS caution lights and cease when the envelope is exited. Mode 4B is active during cruise and approach, with gear down and flaps not in the landing selection. Below 1,000 feet AGL and above 159 knots airspeed, the Mode 4B oral alert is
Too low terrain.
below 245 feet AGL and less than 159 knots airspeed. The oral alert is
Too low flaps.
Both alerts are accompanied by the EGPWS caution lights and cease when the envelope is exited. The Flap 2433 selection switch is a customer option. It is used to determine a landing flap setting for the EGPWS. The default value is 33. The too low flaps alert will sound when landing at any other flap setting than 33 is attempted. Pressing this switch will select 24. The warning is triggered when a landing of flap 0 or 18 is attempted. The EGPWS flap warn override switch, guarded by a transparent cover, is installed to inhibit the too low flaps alert when pressed. The alert is then inhibited irrespective of the landing flap setting. Mode 4C is based on an EGPWS Computed Minimum Terrain Clearance Floor, MTC, that increases with radio altitude. It is active after takeoff when the gear or flaps are up and during a low-altitude go-around. At takeoff, the MTC is 0 feet. During climb, the MTC is increased to 75% of the aircraft's radio altitude. This value is not allowed to decrease and is limited to 500 feet AGL for airspeed less than 190 knots. Beginning at 190 knots, the MTC increases linearly to the limit of 1,000 feet at 250 knots. If the aircraft's radio altitude decreases to the value of the MTC, the EGPWS caution lights illuminate and the oral message,
Too low terrain.
EGPWS caution lights extinguish and oral messages cease when the Mode 4C alert envelope is exited. Mode 5 provides 2 levels of alerting for when the aircraft descends below glide slope, resulting in activation of EGPWS caution lights and oral messages. The first level alert occurs when below 1,000 feet radio altitude and the aircraft is 1.3 dots or greater below the beam. This turns on the caution lights in